Welcome to the Outback Steakhouse all-time, all-Madden Super Bowl team. And John, how'd you come up with this idea?
Well, I just thought it was such a great day. Today is Super Bowl Sunday. It's Fox's first Super Bowl. They've already played 30 of them. So I figured, what the heck, it's time for an all-time team.
Now, what do you got for a team?
Well, I got big guys and fast guys and quiet guys and loud guys. I got Lombardi's guys, Shula's guys, but guys that are all champions. And if you were a player, you'd want to play with them. If you were a coach, you'd want to coach them. And if you were a fan, you'd want to watch them. But you know what the biggest thing is? They're going to be here. They're coming. They're coming here. They're going to be in the locker room with us.
That's right. The greatest football team ever assembled will assemble. But first, we'll show you the arduous process of selecting the team.
I just have to see some more film.
You'll hear keen insights from the greats.
I could feel the juice from the crab running all the way down my pants into my socks and shoes.
I've never made a deal with the devil.
We'll check in and see what some of the players are up to these days. John may not be able to select any of his Raiders, but boy, have they got some tales to tell.
Be on time
and win.
And best of all, John Madden delivers his first pregame pep talk in almost 20 years. It's the Outback Steakhouse all-time, all-Madden Super Bowl team next.
Gets out of the boat, goes in the brush. He comes back wading out of the brush, throws an alligator 3.5 feet long in the boat with me.
Welcome back to the show. John, it must have been tough to pick this team.
I'll tell you, Pat, you don't know the half of it. At first, picking an all-time team was easy. We had no rules, so I did some thinking, looked through the history books, watched film, and solicited advice. People everywhere were very helpful.
Hey, how about Sam Huff?
Hey, Don, what about LT?
How about Bucky?
Quickly, our list grew. The more I thought about it, the more names I found. In fact, everything started to remind me of great players.
John, don't forget about the Colts.
Gotcha, Seabiscuit. Love those old Colts. That's Johnny Hughes, Chip Parker, and Ray Berry. Let's see Birds, Eagles, Concrete Chuck Bednarik. Hey, the train. Jeff Night Train Lane. Hey, this is getting out of control.
17 quarterback, 12,000 pounds of line men, no kickers or punters. Is that all?
Now our roster was out of control.
John, this is Houston. We have a problem. We recommend you select Earl Campbell. Over.
But I still couldn't stop picking guys, even in my sleep. I was selecting more players. Heck, who counts sheep? I was counting lambs. Finally, I went to see the capologist. He quickly put a new spin on things.
John, you've selected 497 players. You're $735 million over the salary cap. As your all-Madden capologist, I have to tell you, this is fiscally irresponsible.
And that's when we instituted our rules, and you know how I feel about those things. Even though I couldn't draft the Fox guys, there was one thing I had to do.
You know, I knew you were living in the past.
My shoulder pads are bigger than yours.
Now we're talking. There's the guys I remember, 3 of the best. You know, Pat, that's a tough rule. I mean, there's no way that you can have an all-time Super Bowl team and leave Matt Millen, Terry Bradshaw, Howie Long, and Ronnie Lott off it. Those were 4 of the greatest guys that ever played the game at their position. And so what the heck? I'm not a real rules guy anyway. I'm going to challenge that rule, and I'm going to say, the heck with the rule. Those guys are on it.
All right, John, it's time to meet the team now. And let's start with the running backs. And what better place to start than with the NFL's all-time leading rusher, Walter Payton.
Every time I handed the ball off to him, I was amazed at what he could do. He gave everything he had on every play, whether he was running the football, blocking, catching. He was a complete football player. He was the best. I mean, he wasn't blessed with great speed, but he had a heart bigger than anybody, and he was probably the strongest man I've ever met.
John Riggins, one of the toughest guys to bring down and the MVP of Super Bowl 17.
I remember John was just running the ball at will that day. My receiver blocked down on the defensive end, and I'm confronted with John Riggins. I said, man, I'm going to make this tackle and save the game for us. Because I had him for a loss. I hit him, and I couldn't hang on. And he just seemed to push me off and went for the winning touchdown. I said, man, what am I going to do? I've lost the game for our team.
Larry Zonka bulldozed his way to 2 Super Bowl victories and an MVP award.
This ring is kind of modest by Super Bowl ring standards, but it's the only ring that represents an undefeated season. No one, no one in the NFL. Having gone through the period of being the fish that couldn't swim and the doormat of the American Football League, and then suddenly, literally 2 years later after Shula came to us, sitting on the brink of the Super Bowl, was a little bit unbelievable. I played kind of a physical game. I couldn't outrun many of the people on the field, maybe 3 or 4 at best. And as a result, those people caught me. And when they caught me, they were angry. And they hurt me. If I could go back and win on every play at the age of 50, I'd love to play again. But, you know, it doesn't work that way.
Up next, the offensive line. Welcome back to our show. And John will continue with one of your favorite areas, the offensive line.
And the offensive line is my favorite because if the offensive line doesn't do what they have to do, then nothing else gets done. And I think when you think of Super Bowls and offensive linemen, you have to think of the Hogs. I mean, they would blow them out in the run. They would pass protect them. And, you know, and this is what an offensive lineman's locker looks like. You know, you never know. You never have any idea. I mean, you pull out stuff and
smoke.
Look, I mean, tape, shoulder pads, food, anything falls out there. But they're the solid people of the team. They're what everything is built around.
Don't go any deeper. Joe Jacoby and Russ Grimm won 3 Super Bowls under head coach Joe Gibbs.
Russ Grimm was a great leader. He was one of the most athletic guys on our football team. When we ran counter gap, it was our trademark. Russ Grimm was the one that led the play. Joe Jacoby would come up behind him. Overall, what he meant most to our football team, besides being a great football player, he was one of our real leaders. Joe Jacoby, to me, was the best drive blocker I ever coached. And so when we had to have something, we ran right over the top of Joe Jacoby.
Jerry Kramer led the famed Green Bay sweep to the first 2 Super Bowl titles.
During the heyday of the Packers, a great team that loved to sweep behind Kramer and Thurston. Kramer was not only one of the finest of football's players, but certainly in the mold of what Vince Lombardi wanted.
Mike Webster won 4 Super Bowls and became very close with Terry Bradshaw. Very close.
Webster was a guy that I kind of looked to. Webby was so smart. He saw the little things, the little angles. Not to mention the fact that he had one of those good flat butts. I mean, you can squat down and really take a snap. You can really put your hands on him and you say, hey, this is good. This is nice right here.
Jackie Slater set an NFL record by playing 20 years with the same team.
You knew one thing when you played against Jackie Slater, you were going to be in for a fight for 4 quarters. It was a fight. Jackie was one of the biggest, nastiest, talented guys I had ever competed against.
John Hanna was voted to the Pro Bowl 10 times in his 13-year career and made it to 1 Super Bowl.
John Hanna was simply the best offensive lineman that I ever watched or had the privilege to play against. He could beat you with power. He could beat you with finesse. He could beat you just on his head. But the best part about him was his intensity. There was never a more intense offensive lineman than John Hanna.
And All Madden perennial Anthony Munoz is considered by many to be the best left tackle ever.
Anthony Munoz, he was much more of a technician than he was a killer. He could just obliterate an opponent. The most dominant offensive lineman that I've ever been around.
Another member of football's only undefeated Super Bowl champion, Larry Little, is now a college head coach.
All right, man, listen up. Good first half. Play the last half. That's the last game of your life. Let's go out there and win this football game, man. Let's go.
I love coaching. Going out recruiting these young men, seeing them coming as boys and leaving as men. I try to have the positive father image with them, you know. They know if I get on them.
Hey, Tommy, keep it cool now.
I'm doing it because I love them. I know they're proud of me and what I've accomplished. They bring it up to me more than I bring it up to them. You know, I was a hard-nosed football player. I came to play week in and week out. It's down and dirty in the trenches, no doubt about it. You know, you have to be a man to play down there now. It's not a boys' game to play in the trenches. I demand respect on the football field.
I'll tell you, and this guy that had this jersey was really tough.
He really was.
You know, 4 Super Bowls, Hall of Fame. And, you know, he was the first guy that lined up in that cocked position, you know, that center guard gap where they line up crooked. Tell you, he was tough to block when he lined up straight. When he lined up crooked, he was impossible to block.
The rest of the defensive line begins with another of those famed Packers, Willie Davis.
And I rate Willie as one of the finest defensive ends that I've ever played against. He was so quick getting off the ball. He could get off the ball like 100 miles an hour. He could stand you straight up. He was so strong. He could stand you straight up. That's what made him great.
Bob Lilly was the first of Tom Landry's Cowboys to be inducted into Pro Football's Hall of Fame.
Bob Lilly was an amazing guy. He was our first draft choice that we had. I tell you, when he got in on the inside, it took 2 men to handle him. And when that happens, you know, your defense is pretty easy to set up.
Alan Page never won a Super Bowl, but he was the MVP of the entire league in 1971.
Honorable Justices of the Supreme Court of the State of Minnesota.
I've never been one that liked losing. I understand that you go out and play as hard as you can and as well as you can, that somebody's got to win and somebody's got to lose, but I've never been much of a fan of being on the short side of the football score. There are a number of things as a football player that you learn. Discipline, hard work, the ability to focus. All of those characteristics are necessary if you're going to be a good judge. From week to week, it didn't much matter to me who was on the other side of the line of scrimmage. You have to play your best to fulfill your potential all the time.
A second Cowboy, Randy White, was the co-MVP of Super Bowl 12.
Well, Randy White was a very unique defensive lineman. He didn't care who he lined up against. I mean, whoever was across from him, they knew they had 60 minutes of tough football because he had great speed, he had great determination, and to have that kind of quality, then you knew you had a great player.
And you talk about tough. Jack Youngblood played Super Bowl 14 with a broken leg. Today you can find him rounding up cattle in northern Florida.
Not where that big one lays.
The Super Bowl certainly was the highlight of any football player's career, and certainly the highlight of my career. Walking out of that tunnel in Pasadena, all your senses are just, they're peaking at that point. Unfortunately, I had to deal with a little something different. The broken leg happened in the playoff game in Dallas. The fibula was broken, snapped just like a pencil. And I told the doc, I said, I'm going to go play. He goes, you're crazy. And I said, I may be, but this is Dallas. And I went back and finished the ball game, and we beat Dallas. The next week, we go to Tampa, and I played on it there. Tampa 9-0, and that put us in the Super Bowl. And of course, 2 weeks later, we faced the Steelers. The opportunity to play was worth the pain of a broken leg.
You ought to be proud of it, Don. Yeah, especially if you used to tackle calves before you did quarterback.
Jack and the rest of the team are on the way here. First, John's Raiders have got some tales to tell.
And grab that door and kick that door up.
Well, you know, before there was an All Madden team, there was the Oakland Raiders. We wanted to build the finest organization in professional sports. We wanted to build something with tradition, history, great players, great coaches, great games that would last forever. Describing a Raider then
A player who had size, power, speed, dominate. They were tough guys. They had a commitment to excellence. Anytime we brought someone in who was considered a bad apple by the culture or by other teams, we could bring them into our environment, and our environment was so strong that we didn't have to worry about it. Then I can remember John standing out there, waving those hands, yelling, screaming, cajoling, blasting them, but yet winning. Wow, we left a ton of history for the National Football League on great plays and great games.
Hey, remember the time we were back in Pittsburgh? We are back there playing that big game.
But what about the play that caused us to lose, though? I mean, that immaculate reception back there. I mean, let's be real. What a joke for a call the officials made. I mean,
you know, no one really knows who actually hit the ball. Who, you know, I was right there, Gene. I was right there.
Jack Tatum almost took his head off. You know, he didn't hit the ball.
We all know Jack Tatum would never go for the ball when there was a person to be hit.
Check this out. The last thing we said in the huddle is, look, we got this game won. All we got to do is knock the ball down. Yeah. And guess what happened? Tate went for the big knockout.
I put in that 50 there.
We put in a 50 for everybody.
In the old AFL, they started with the names on the jerseys, and they put the last name on the back of the jerseys. Well, Phil Yard's a rookie. He comes into camp, and he sees Mark Van Egan, which is his last name on his jersey. So he's concerned because he only has Phil Yard on the back of his jersey, so he goes to Dick Romansky, and he asks Equipment manager. He asks Dick, says, how come I can't get both of my names on my jersey? Dick said, well, they only allow just your last name on the back of the jersey, Phil Yard. He said, well, Van Egan has both of his names.
I never will forget we were playing Minnesota in that Super Bowl. He went to John, and he wanted to know if the game was going to be on national TV. He wasn't sure the Super Bowl was going to be on national TV.
You bluffed him out the same way you used to do it. You're still bluffing the man.
I know. He didn't bluff me out.
Tell the one about you said, John said, don't worry about you being blind.
The big Nuke Rodney speech. The win one for the Gipper speech. And he comes up with this great line. Don't worry about the horses being blind. Just load the wagon. Nobody knows what it meant. To this day, look at each other and go, what the hell does that mean? And Phil Yard was the first one. Oh, yeah!
It's a game, huh?
Just didn't call it 7 blind.
$50, I take 30 of it.
Well, see, John had his hands full. We had a crowd there. I mean, you had the Matuzaks, the Skip Thomases, the Phil Yards. I mean, could you imagine being a head coach for this group? Every day there was a different story. I mean, you come to practice every day. John would be sitting there, standing by the door, meetings ready to start, and you knew eventually every guy around was involved in something.
Hey, I was never involved in any of that stuff.
Oh, you were always an angel.
Do I look like I was
doing anything? Because you're a company man. You always were a company man. Look at this Raider watch. I bet you don't even, you probably have on Raider underwear.
I bet you I do. I'll bet a Super Bowl ring that I got Raider underwear on.
I'll call it.
You called it. That's good.
I'll bet my Hall of Fame ring that I do.
Well, I raised that. I happen to have one.
Do I have to show?
You got to Andy up. We got to top.
We got to do this discreetly now because this is national television.
Hey, I can't believe it. Always a Raider.
Stay tuned. They're about to deal in a 7. Welcome back to the Outback Steakhouse All-Time All Madden Super Bowl team. The squad is on their way to our locker room, but before they get here, we've got a poker game to finish.
So seven Cardinal Peak. That's Andy up $20.
Do you guys remember in the locker room before the Super Bowl game what John said as his pep talk? Which I think was the greatest pep talk of all time. And I tell you what, I was like 6, 7 years in the league, and I was a little afraid. You know, as good as we were and all that, I was semi-nervous. I figured John was going to give us the big settling pep talk and send us out there on our way. And I remember he said, take a knee, we do our little prayer. And then John looked around the locker room and said, gentlemen, this is going to be the biggest day, the biggest single event in any of your lives, as long as you win. Now go get it.
snap the ball until the snap count. You can't hold. I mean, don't get now the deal about, well, you want to snake and then you kill. You two guys, Filipiano and Atkinson, the whistle blows, stop. You know what I mean? It's hard. You can't get up the field on the draw. No. You know what I mean? If you're going to run the draw, you got to play the run job. And then come back and stop. And now, look, when we get Kansas City, we finally get them, you know. We're running out the ball. Yeah. Don't say that Willie Lanier was soft.
Win one for the gift of speech. Don't worry about the horse being blind. Load the wagon.
Yeah, just load the wagon.
Just load the wagon.
I mean,
well,
we're still trying to figure it out.
We're still trying to figure it out. 30 years later.
Don't worry, you can't think, right? But when you think during the week, and then you just go play like hell on Sunday.
That was the rules. That was the rules.
We were talking about the rules. Some guys were from universities and some guys were from colleges. I just want to say one thing here, that if it weren't for you guys and all the guys that you represented, you know, my life, you don't know what my life would have been. And for whatever's happened and all the good that has happened, I just want to thank you because it's happened because of you guys.
I got a charitable cause that you can donate to.
The rest of the defense next. Welcome back to the Outback Steakhouse All-Time All-Madden Super Bowl team. And, John, what about your linebackers?
Well, you know, when you think of pro football, think of Vince Lombardi, the Green Bay Packers, Lambeau Field. And then when you have to start with a linebacker, I think you start with an ex-Green Bay Packer, Hall of Famer, number 66, middle linebacker, Ray Nitschke.
He won the first 2 Super Bowls and was a quarterback's worst nightmare.
You know, if you're a quarterback and you look across the line of scrimmage, the middle linebacker, and you see this guy scowling at you by the name of Ray Nitschke, he gets your attention in a hurry. I can still see footage, intercepting a pass or picking up a fumble, I forget what it was, but here he is limping into the end zone. He is one tough hombre.
The toughest hombre of his era, Lawrence Taylor.
Hey, come on, baby, you can't pussyfoot up in there, you gotta run it! You gotta run it!
The guy was one of the most phenomenal athletes that I ever saw play the game or played against. When he came into the league, he revolutionized what you had to do offensively. On every single play, you had to account for Lawrence Taylor. He was that good.
Willie Lanier quarterbacked the Chiefs' defense for 11 seasons and won Super Bowl IV.
Playing against Willie Lanier was really a tough assignment because he was a very hard-nosed player. Strong, tough. He had a helmet that looked like he had a big cone in the middle. And when you put that cone on, we hurt him. And he was a great football player. He's a Hall of Famer, and deservedly so.
Mike Curtis scared anyone who wandered onto a football field.
Mike Curtis was a great middle linebacker, and he was mean and tough, and he was always, where the action was. This spectator runs out onto the field, and Mike Curtis sees him coming, and he gave him a forearm and knocked him, and that was the last any spectators ever ran out when we were playing.
To finish off the linebackers, we'll take the Steelers' pair of jacks. First off, Jack Ham.
Jack Ham was a man who knew what you were going to do. I used to enjoy playing against Jack Ham because we tried to do something that we had never done before, just to mess Jack up. Very well-schooled, very articulate, very into the game on the intelligence side.
And his partner in crime, Jack Lambert, who's now chasing poachers in Pennsylvania.
You know, I never really hung around with the guys that much. I always hung around with guys that like to hunt and fish. Well, I think you're talking to someone that probably enjoyed playing the game of professional football as much as anybody that ever played it. Everybody told me going to the National Football League I was, too light. I had to put on 30 pounds to play, and everybody said I wasn't fast enough or wasn't strong enough. And I said, well, I'm just going to go there and play the best I can and see what happens. My very first year in the National Football League, we won a Super Bowl. My second year, we won a Super Bowl. And I said, you know, this is just the way it's supposed to be. We missed it for 2 years in a row. And then we came back and we won it 2 years in a row again. And I appreciated those last two much more than the first one.
That'll cool your ass off.
The rivalry I enjoyed the most was against the Raiders. When you get them playing them, you know, you wipe the blood off and spit out a couple of chipped teeth. You knew you'd been in the game. That was my kind of football.
John, you don't want to be a poacher in Pennsylvania, not with Lambert looking for you. What about some DBs?
Well, I want to start again with some Green Bay Packers. In fact, a couple of guys that played in the Super Bowl before they even called it a Super Bowl. Herb Adderley and Willie Wood.
Wood played in a total of 6 league championships, including the first 2 Super Bowls.
He was a sort of quarterback in that defensive backfield and a hard-nosed guy who set the pace by his hard hitting. That's one thing Willie Wood could do is he'd come up out of the 3 safety spot and really latch on. He sort of set the tempo for us.
Herb Adderley was the first guy to win a Super Bowl ring with 2 different teams.
Herb was a finesser. He was a cornerback who did an excellent job in coverage, great athlete, could make everything look easy. Football was easy to him.
A member of the no-name defense and the Super Bowl VII MVP, Jake Scott.
And I could see where Jake Scott would be a Madden pick. Jake Scott was just a guy that loved to compete. He wanted to be the guy to make the big play in the big ball game. I've always thought about Jake Scott as a pressure player.
A 4th member of that Steeler defense, Hall of Famer Mel Blount.
He was just a phenomenal physical specimen. Guy stayed in great shape all the time and really revolutionized the way cornerback was played. A guy that big, that type of size that could actually go out and intimidate receivers. It just was different than what anybody had ever seen.
And just so there's no confusion, Mike Haynes played for the Raiders after John Madden retired.
Mike Haynes was a cornerback who had mastered the cover one, the man-on-man coverage. Mike Haynes could sit there, lock up, and it was like ballet. He was a phenomenal player, and a player you didn't hear a lot about because he wasn't a flashy player. He just was one of the best cover corners to ever play professional football.
Up next, the receivers. Mark Bavaro and the All Madden team are heading our way. And now let's meet the receivers. The duo that helped make Terry Bradshaw a Hall of Famer, John Stallworth and Lynn Swann.
The great thing about Lynn Swann was his ability to hang. Men could hang in the air, or it appeared that he could just float forever. John's ability was his great hands, and once again, great ability to concentrate and make the impossible catch. I remember Super Bowl 14, the 2 catches that Stallworth made down the middle. When I saw them on television, I just thought, good God, how did he catch that? Not to mention the leaping catch that Lynn made in that game. You do marvel at them. I mean, you do marvel at these 2 guys.
Joe Namath's favorite target, Don Maynard.
I have a defense coming to play the New York Jets. The first guy I'm going to put 2 people on is Don Maynard. Don Maynard's going to run past anybody out there. As much ability as he had physically, his head was sharp.
And one last player from Don Shula's undefeated Dolphins, Paul Warfield.
Paul Warfield, he was artistic on the football field and graceful, and you just admired that tremendous talent.
One of pro football's first big wideouts, Kansas City's Otis Taylor.
Otis Taylor was a big receiver. 6'3", about 215. What made Otis really tough was the fact that he was not only big, but he was fast and he could catch the ball. He was a punishing receiver after he caught the football.
He's listed as a wide receiver, but on the All Madden team, he's an honorary hog.
Gary Clark, too bad he wasn't a little bit bigger. He could fit perfect in the offensive line. He's a guy that he's going to sacrifice his body, make that play, to get that first down, to get that touchdown.
But John, your quarterbacks are going to love throwing to that group of receivers. What about some tight ends?
Well, they're going to love the tight ends, too. I've always thought that a tight end should be like a wide receiver when you want to throw the ball, and he should be like an offensive lineman when you want to run the ball. And these three guys were like that.
They're hard to find.
Yeah, you remember John Mackey? He's in the Hall of Fame, the great Baltimore Colt tight end. And Mike Ditka, a lot of people think of him as a Chicago Bear coach, but he's also a Hall of Fame tight end. And you talk about a tough guy in the field, that was Mike Ditka. And then I think the best tight end that we've seen since we've been broadcasting partners is Mark Bavaro of the New York Giants. He was something special. I mean, he could block like an offensive lineman and receive like a wide receiver.
Bavaro blocked and caught his way to 2 Super Bowl titles with the New York Giants. And today you'll find him in his cousin's basement bottling his own wine.
As much as I lay back when I play, it's still too deep. But I remember just a lot of times just sitting there in awe watching my teammates play, like Sims and Taylor and Harry Carson and George Martin, and just having a great feeling knowing that whether they liked it or not, I was part of that team. Well, I don't care about McConkey. I wanted 2 touchdowns in the Super Bowl, and the ball bounced off my helmet. It was an easy catch, one that I should have made. And I look back, and every time I see that play, instead of being happy for McConkey and happy we scored, I just cringed because, you know, I dropped the ball. You know, after that, he was just unbearable to live with. Sometimes it doesn't even feel like I played football. You kind of forget all those times that you played, and just to look back and see some highlight film, just like somebody else was doing it, I'm just very grateful and very proud to be part of it.
Even though you're out of it, it's still the game to watch, and it's interesting to go and watch and see how people handle the pressure and how they play in the game. But the biggest concern is what kind of food I'm going to eat while watching.
To me, he was the best quarterback that ever played this game. And he's a winner, and he's a guy that did things that every quarterback tried to do, but he just made it look easy. And then you think of quarterbacks that have played this game. I don't think there was a classier guy than the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys when it was Roger Staubach.
Without a doubt. I was at the Naval Academy. I really didn't think I'd ever play professional football, and so it was a dream. I mean, it was something to try to play professionally again, to be drafted by Dallas, and to dream about playing, then to be involved with Tom Landry and guys I was idolizing in the service, the Lillies and the Mel Renfros and the Cornell Greens, the Leroy George. It was a dream for me to have 11 years with a great organization.
John, I see you have a third quarterback.
Well, I think anytime you think of Super Bowls past, you have to remember Super Bowl III and Joe Namath. What a job he did in those days. I was a coach of the Oakland Raiders, and that was not only a win for Joe Namath and the New York Jets, but it was a win for the whole American Football League. And I remember coaching against him, and he was the toughest quarterback and the best quarterback that I ever coached against. I remember we played him one game, and we did everything to him. I mean, we blitzed him, we zoned him, we manned him, we hit him, we knocked him upside down, looking up his ear hole, and he just kept getting up and throwing it and throwing it and throwing it. It was the only time in my career that after a game I went in the locker room and shook the hand of an opponent. And I said, man, you're the greatest.
Joe Willie Namath put the super in Super Bowl.
Why should I ever get tired of talking about Super Bowl III and our team and getting over the hump and winning that game? And no, I don't get tired of it. Look at that shot. A few nights before the game, I was at the Miami Touchdown Club, and I had a chance to accept an award. And as I got to the podium, one of the guys in the back of the room yelled out, "Namath, we're going to kick your behind," you know. And I said, whoa, wait a minute. You know, you guys have been talking for 10 days now. That's all we've been here. And I'm going to tell you something. We're going to win the game, I guarantee you. It was just, we are.
And they did. In what is still the most stunning upset in pro football history, Jets 16, Colts 7. The NFL would never be the same.
As we're leaving the field, bunch of Jet fans right up over top of the tunnel that we're going out, you know, and I just saw them. It was sharing that, yes, we did it. It was, again, the goosebumps, you know. It was the only time I ever did that. that I could ever remember doing that. The people that I saw coming off the field caused that.
I'm going to get creamed.
The knee. It's not my neck, it's not my back, it's not my heart or something that's going to put me 6 feet under. And I swear to you, that's a big difference. Every now and then you look up here and see some of those pictures and get a little inspiration when you're getting tired, anytime or whatever. Even then you try to please them. Even now, you know, you want to make sure you're working out right. There is our Super Bowl ring. And those words that Weeb gave us, right down here, poise. He put on the rings. Execution. Winning that championship, man, was everything we were shooting for, and when we did it, it was every bit as good as what you might have thought it was going to be like.
The all-time All Madden Super Bowl team has arrived. They'll be in our locker room next.
They got him right before the game in the locker room. Our team broke out on the field and they were, whoa, where did we get those shoes?
You didn't get them?
This is amazing. This is what an all-time, All Madden Super Bowl team would look like. I'll tell you, it's pretty impressive. You know, you think of all the legends in here, and think of the Super Bowl and what it is. The Super Bowl is going to be played today, and 31st Super Bowl. And there's guys that represent Super Bowls before they even called them Super Bowls. Green Bay Packers, Kansas City Chiefs, Super Bowl I, that was a championship game. Guys in here that played in those games. Super Bowl II, Super Bowl III. We all remember that, and the AFL, it just gives me chills thinking about Super Bowl III, Super Bowl IV, the Kansas City Chiefs. Roger Staubach. You know, all the great games, all the legends that you played for. And you look up there and there's Vince Lombardi. And there's guys in this room, Jerry Kramer, that played for Vince Lombardi. I think of pro football, I think of Vince Lombardi. There's guys here that played for George Halas. There's guys here that played for Don Shula, for Tom Landry, for Chuck Noll. For the legends, for the great coaches. Guys here that made the game. You guys that have made the game. And if it weren't for you guys in this room, where would the Super Bowl be? What would it be? You played in legendary stadiums. I mean, Lambeau Field, RFK, Three River. Guys in here that played on the only undefeated team in the history of the National Football League. Everyone in here played injured. Guys in here play with broken legs. Guys in here sacrificed, gave whatever they had to. And they're special people. And sometimes you wonder, you know, where would we be? Where would any of us be? Where would the game be if it weren't for what you guys did and the way you started it? Now, you know, and it's a thrill for me, again, to be in this room. And, you know, we're not going to play a game, but just think if we could play a game. I mean, if we could go out there, let me tell you, and we line up Willie Lanier, Mike Curtis in the middle, where are they going to run? Where are they going to run? I mean, we have Randy White in there. Where are they going to, Jack Youngblood? How are they going to pass? How are they going to get anything off? Then if they do, I mean, we got, Herb Adderley, we got Willie, what are they going to do? They'd be scared to death of us. Huh? I mean, Mike Haynes, who's going to beat him? They can't beat him. And then, then when we got the ball, look, we'd have these guys blocking. I mean, how would you like to come out there and have these guys, I mean, Jerry Creamer, Jackie Slater, Mike Webster, Larry Little, Munoz, Jacoby, I mean, the best. These guys are blocking out there. And you have Larry Zonka running in there behind him. Huh? Walter Payton in there. What do they do? How do they do anything? Then we want to throw it. I mean, Joe Namath. You kidding me? Roger Staubach throwing the ball. Otis Taylor, Paul Warfield, Gary Clark, John Staubach. I mean, catching the ball? What are you kidding me? We wouldn't even need any special team. We'd never punt. They'd say, how about kicking off? I don't care. Hell, just start it somehow. We'll play you. I mean, who would want to play? I mean, tight ends. I mean, John Mackey. Mark Bavaro. I mean, we could block them. We could run them. We could throw deep. We could throw short. Don Maynard. I mean, who's going to cover them today? Nothing. Nothing. They'd be out there shaking. What the hell are you talking about they want to play? No one would want to play this group. No one would want to play this group. They wouldn't. But this is what it's all about. And again, weren't going to play. But I remember Ray Nitschke saying that you always have one hit left in you. And you always have one hit left in you. Everyone in here has one hit left in them. One throw, one catch, one run, whatever. But I think we'll probably just keep it. That's the smart thing. Probably just keep it and take it with us. Just stick it in the back pocket. But we could dream what it would be like. And I know my dream would be that it would be great. I mean, I would love to be a part of this group. And you can dream because you earn the right to dream. I mean, a lot of people dream, but they've never done it. And you guys have done it. And today when they play the Super Bowl, I think that everyone that's watching, I think everyone that's coaching, I think everyone that's playing can say thank you. Because it was you guys that established the NFL. It was you guys that established the Super Bowl. And we can go back, like we said, when it wasn't even called a Super Bowl. Then it became a Super Bowl. And now it's a day. And it's gotten so big, it's now called Super Bowl Sunday. It's a day. It has its own day. And again, you guys were all part of it, part of the history of it, and you have the right to say you remember when you were there because you did it. And I remember Roger Staubach telling me after we won Super Bowl 11, saying the greatest thing about it is that they can never say that you can't win the big one. The greatest thing about it is they can never take it away from you. And that's something that you all have. And again, it's something that if we could just keep and say what a pleasure and honor it is to have this all-time Super Bowl team, and it's a team that I would take and take any place because you're the greatest. Thanks. I thought Mike Curtis was
hey,
going
to come. Hey, you guys, come in here, everybody. Come on down.
Come on.
Everybody get our hands in here. All right. All right? Hey, you guys are the best of the best. I'm proud to be part of this team. It's a good thing we're not playing today because it wouldn't be a contest. We'll be the victors. Let's go out there and just enjoy ourselves. Ready?